What's up, Internet, and welcome to the Owl's Nest. This is going to be a weekly series where we cover everything Overwatch League. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you don't miss an episode. And if you're liking what we're doing here, make sure you hit that thumbs up. So, my man, ZP, we had a ton of stuff happen last week. It's been an insane flurry of not only balance changes, but crazy matches. And I think the best place for us to start is probably the most impactful, which is going to be the balance changes that just happened. And I think particularly, I want to talk about Mercy.
You want to talk about the hero that has been put into the ground? Well, Mercy is certainly going to be played a lot less into the new meta, where you take a look at recent tournaments that have been played, like the Overwatch Beat Invitational, where the balance changes have been live before Overwatch League. And I gotta tell you, Nabil, you're seeing much less Mercy, you're seeing way more Moira, and combinations like Lucio Zenyatta are making a strong comeback.
So I think Moira is kind of what I feel everybody's kind of defaulting back to. And I'm kind of curious, what pairs best with Moira? And what do you think we're going to be seeing more of in Overwatch League?
Well, one thing we're seeing for sure right now is we're seeing teams go out of their way to go, let's try more triple tank. It doesn't always work out, though. What we do see, however, is that any map where you have a more closed-in area, teams are very willing to run the Moira because you just get more mileage out of it. Your team's closer together. It's good for sort of negating some of the Junkrat damage that comes out, where even though he's been nerfed, teams are still running him very actively. And what's important here is that there's multiple different ways. You can be slower in the back, where you run, say, a Moira composition with a Zenyatta, or you could run Lucio Zen and just try and dive on a team before they can really take advantage of that healing. We're seeing a lot of experimentation from teams and how they want to run this, and I think even at the Overwatch League level, it's going to take a while for teams to figure out just how do you adapt to a meta where you only really run Mercy with a Pharah.
So now that it feels like Pharmacy is going to be a lot more solidified in that aspect, but there's a lot of changes, particularly when it comes to Valkyrie, right? So there's the change for how long that your Valkyrie is enabled. There's the change for instant reses being no longer available, and there's a change to the amount of charges, right?
Yeah, you no longer get an extra resurrection charge for activating Valkyrie, nor can you just activate Valkyrie and bring someone right back up. No matter what, if you want to bring someone back up to life, you have to make that investment. You have to put your life on the line as a Mercy and commit to bringing that resurrection. Now, it doesn't mean that you won't get resurrections off. At times where you do run a fair Mercy, we have seen Mercies take that gamble, but very often the Mercy will get punished in return. And it means that even when you are running a Mercy, it still feels more fair when a resurrection comes out. So it's a big change to the tempo of the game.
Do you feel like there's now a different emphasis that Mercy players have to have when they're going to the team fight? Maybe I have to think more positioning oriented. Do I have to make sure I'm staying behind my tanks? Is it those situations you have to figure out? Now that you don't have instant res, you have to think, I have a cast time that I have to take care of. So is there like more decision making that comes with it now?
Yeah, there's absolutely more decision making where you have to take a calculated risk. Previous incarnations of Mercy, it's like, oh, there's someone dead. I guess I might as well just hit shift, move forward, not care about anything else, and bring the person back up. No, now it's a calculated decision because you're going to be sitting there stuck as you channel, and if anyone else is looking at you, if anyone else is going, oh, Mercy would like to res this, well, you're going to get punished.
So I think, speaking of punishment, a lot of punishment has been being dished out from a lot of these Junkrats, but now they're kind of tapering it back a little bit, right?
Just a little bit. I think the demise of Junkrat is a little bit overstated, where, yes, he does have Fall Fuzz concussion mines now, so you don't have the incarnations of players like Jake sniping someone from across the map with a mine, as glorious as that was to watch, or as rage-inducing, depending on what side of the fence you are on. So, yeah, you're not going to get that, but you're still going to get a lot of Junkrat play, particularly on maps with closed-in areas. Tournament play, we saw great Junkrat play on Last Point Till of Anubis, great Junkrat play on Lijiang Control Center rather. So Junkrat overall is definitely still in a good spot, and in large parts because Riptire was untouched. You're still going to be literally running people over.
But I think it makes sense when you think about Junkrat, right? Junkrat's more about area denial. It's more about how can I crack down on some of the shields. It's about throwing that explosive damage. It was never really about being precise, right? So I feel like thematically it fits with Junkrat, right?
I mean, it fits, but I mean, there is a few arguments to be made about, oh, now you've reduced the skill cap a little bit, but I mean, that can be addressed in other ways. Overall, I think it was a positive change. Junkrat still played, which means the nerf was not over the top. So overall, very much like the bounce changes that are coming to the game.
So I think that when I think of Junkrat, I think it's synonymous at this point to think about Jake, to think about the Outlaws, to think about the Jake Rat. And he has been fantastic for these past couple of weeks. The Outlaws, we've racked up so many wins across Pack 1s, and honestly having an uncontested map win rate, right? So we've been going back and forth, having that streak build, but now this week we had to go against one of the Titans. We had to take on Seoul Dynasty. We had to take on one of those colossal giants that has been just towering over the rest of Overwatch League. And I think that match went a lot differently than what a lot of folks anticipated, right?
Well, it did, where Houston was definitely on a big winning spree where they were crushing opponents before them. But a lot of people, rightly so I might add, looked at the strength of schedule and went, well, what does this really mean? Because as Overwatch League goes on, we've been seeing a big disparity between the top of the league, the top 4 to 5, and the teams on the bottom of the league. And for the Outlaws, it was sort of evaluating, well, where do they really stand right now? Are they just the best of the worst, or are they actually one of the best? And when you can take Seoul Dynasty, a team that is lauded for all the right reasons, to a map number 5, and you do that missing one of your very top star players, well, you've started to build a case for saying, you know what, the Outlaws actually are a top 4 to 5 team right now in the league.
Yeah, and you actually touched on the big point here, is we managed to get to that point without Linkzer, who is super sick. Really, really unfortunate, but that brought an opportunity to bring Clockwork into the mix. And I'm curious when it comes to your thoughts about him. I mean, you've been behind the scenes, you've met all these players, You're an OG when it comes to all this stuff. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on Clockwork?
So for those who don't know, Clockwork is a bit of an FPS legend where it wasn't just Overwatch where he got his start. He goes back to a game called Team Fortress 2 where he was one of the very best players in the game there. He has had somewhat of a rocky transition to Overwatch over time where he's had his ups and downs, but before he ended up with Outlaws, he definitely started grinding things out more, really focusing on the game in the way that he hadn't, and that's why he was picked up. And while I don't think Clockwork is quite on the level of, say, a player like Linkzer, where it certainly hurt the Outlaws to be running Clockwork over Linkzer, substitutions are important. People are going to get sick. People are going to come down with a flu that just knocks you completely out of the game, as what happened with Linkzer. So having that depth in a player like Clockwork is important, and Clockwork is still a potential to be had where we don't know just how much he can improve mechanically. We know that in previous games he was one of the best, and look, let's give credit where credit is due. Even if you want to mention, okay, it was winnable with Linkzer, playing with Clockwork, the Outlaws still brought Seoul to 5. And you can't take that away from Clockwork there where you could go, oh, well, he would have won. Sure, but if Clockwork wasn't having a decent impact, I gotta tell you, it wouldn't have been 5, it would have been 3, or I guess it would have been 4, but the series would have been over.
That's fair. I mean, but I think that's the big talking point too, right? Like, we talk about why, I mean, when we look at Linkzer, right, we see this guy who's this ridiculous mechanical machine who does insane Giphy cats.
Finland's gift to esports,
yes,
let's be clear.
Easily. But that's kind of where I'm getting at, is like, what, at this level of play, right, you have two guys that are superstars. But what's the real difference when we look at Linkzer versus Clockwork? Like, players that we see out there, what's the difference between your Steve Nashes and your Scottie Pippens, right?
Well, the difference here, and I'm not actually going to get too deep into the NBA comparison because I just don't know that much about the NBA. I have a very casual knowledge, so I just know Scottie Pippen was the very best in NBA Jam. Yeah. But that's also dating myself. That aside, I would say the difference between the two of them is that Linkzer, for a long time before really Contenders Finals and into Overwatch League, Linkzer was more comparable to Clockwork, but Linkzer, in probably the last 4 months, has sort of taken that next mechanical leap forward where he's become one of the ultra-elite, upper echelon players in the Overwatch League, and the difference between the two is that right now, if you put them on the same hero or just on DPS heroes, even if it's different positions, Linkzer is more likely to make the impossible possible in terms of just being a little bit higher mechanically, a little bit better game sense-wise, but those little differences end up resulting in the difference between, say, Clockwork getting 1 kill and Linkzer getting 4 and winning a team fight. So there is just sort of that level of mechanical expertise between the two that hurts if you have Linkzer out of the game, but we have a great coaching staff, or rather the Outlaws have a great coaching staff, I should note, and a player like a coach like Tyron is going out of his way to level up players as the season goes on.
Yeah, and speaking of the season, I mean, we're coming towards the end of Stage 1, right? So we just wrapped up against Seoul Dynasty, but this week we have to take on another Korean powerhouse. We have to take on the London Spitfire. And then following up, towards the end of the week, we have to take on Boston Uprising. So I'm curious, like, what do you think we should expect going into this week? What does Houston need to do against London?
So going up against London, I would say a key part is that you do kind of want Linkzer back in the lineup. It would be great if hopefully Modern Medicine does its work and his immune system is enough to bring him back into the lineup if you are looking at it from the perspective of the Outlaws. But more than that, I mean, this is going to be the final week of the Mercy Now, the final week where Jake is sort of at max power on Junkrat, and I think you stick to what's done well for you here so far. You leverage Junkrat where possible because Jake has been essentially proven to be one of the very best Junkrats in the league, if not the best. You go out of your way to continue with the improved tank synergy that we've seen between Cool Matt and Muma, where Tyrone has done a great job just optimizing their initiations. And going beyond that, you again hope that you win Junkertown, where it has been a favorite of the Outlaws so far.
You've been crushing it on that map.
I would say if you lose Junkertown, it's probably not going to be a good omen for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
But, so start out strong.
Okay, cool. But against Boston, this is kind of an interesting match, right? That's another one of those matches that I feel like we gotta win, right? We're right there next to them on the standings, correct?
Yes, and right now it's sort of the battle of who is really top 4 in Overwatch League, where, look, standings-wise, the Outlaws are there right now, but the thing about that is that if Boston is able to take that, they sort of take the crown of the team that is the final team in the upper echelon. So I would say for the Outlaws, it would be a nice to win for them if they were able to take down London. I think so long as they have a good showing, it's not bad. We're dealing with a very long season in the Overwatch League, so long as the Outlaws are able to make a good showing there, it's still not bad for the future.
Yeah.
Boston, though, was the one matchup that the Outlaws absolutely want to win, because that's the level of separation where you go, all right, are you the gatekeepers or are you the gatekeep-y in a sense, where you want to be the team that's in the upper level. You don't want to be the team that is sort of, okay, well, we lose to all the top teams, but we beat all the teams below us. So
yeah,
if the goal is to sort of solidify yourself as that top competitor, you need to beat Boston. Pure and simple.
Makes sense. All right, guys. Thanks each and every one of y'all for tuning in. If you liked the video, make sure you're hitting us with a thumbs up, and make sure you're subscribing and hitting that bell so you don't miss a second of all these videos that we're going to be doing every week. Thanks all y'all for tuning in. We'll see y'all next week.